Don't Worry Darling is directed by Olivia Wilde and stars Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, and Chris Pine. A 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry that his glamorous company could be hiding disturbing secrets. I think I speak for most people when I say that this was definitely one of my most anticipated movies of this year. It has an A-list cast, I love Olivia Wilde's previous directed movie Booksmart, and it has drama juicier behind the scenes than insert inappropriate joke here because family-friendly content. I was actually anticipating this movie so much that when I finally found out that the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie was in the 30s of all places, I went into full-on denial mode. No, this could not be the same movie that they were advertising. It had to be some sort of mistake. Maybe Rotten Tomatoes is actually rigged, and there can't be that many bad things in a movie that looks this good. And honestly, it isn't 33% bad, not by a long shot. But I still ended up being disappointed by it. But before we get into that stuff, let's get into all of the good things that this movie has in it. Starting with what I already alluded to earlier, the cast. The acting in this movie is kind of award-worthy all around. Chris Pine is really good as this leader of this community that is always sort of stoic, but at the same time, his inflections and that sort of stoic attitude can be seen as calmingly welcome, but at the same time, easily switched to intimidating as hell. Harry Styles really surprised me in this movie by bringing some A-grade acting material to this role. For most of the movie, he is this sort of upbeat, charming, and cheery guy, but as the movie goes on and the layers behind his character sort of just are peeled more and more and more, you just see just how much he breaks, and you just see how, in reality, how not charming and lovable he actually is as opposed to as he was in the first half of the movie. But the best performance in this movie, bar none, is Florence Pugh. She is incredible in this movie. I have loved her since Fighting with My Family, and she outdoes every single role she has had since with this performance. The amount of madness and emotional struggle that she is constantly going throughout this movie. God, it's such a good performance. Every single time she is crying on screen while everyone else is cheering around her, you just feel so bad because you just know how isolated she feels. And in terms of the cinematography and the set design and the costumes, absolutely stunning. Everything in this movie is just so bright, whether it's the colors like blue and purple and reds and all of those actual vibrant colors that are just so bright in this movie, and the whites that are so bright that they're practically reflective. It's such a beautiful looking movie that truly makes you feel this artificial feeling 1950s landscape that this movie set in. And when it comes to the direction and the score being combined, the tension in this movie is so palpable. So many great suspenseful moments when it comes to the main character and the environment, the main character and the other supporting characters, or just the main character just being by themselves with the direction and the tense music accompanying them. Scenes like that alone are tense in this movie. So virtually every single thing about this movie is top-notch. What could possibly be the big disappointing factor of the whole film? Mainly it's the script. For one, the characters in this movie aren't really built in with personality traits when it comes to the script. And because of that, whenever plot points happen that further along the mystery of what is going on in this town, it never feels natural. Do you remember in the trailer where Florence Pugh crushes an egg and nothing comes out? Or when she's wrapping her head around in plastic and slowly suffocating herself? Those scenes in this movie happen out of nowhere. And when it comes to the dialogue in this film, I will give credit where credit is due. The actors have enough charm to make everything seem natural, but in actuality, everything that they're saying feels cheap. Characters will often just exposition dump for no reason, while other characters who have vital information to the plot just keeps speaking in cryptic tones. It makes no sense either way, and it just feels like a lazy way to build the tension in a movie without it seeming natural. And when it comes to the overall structure of the film, you can tell every single movie that this film is inspired by just from the first, I would say, 20 minutes of the film. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, and if anything, it shows that the director and the writer have a real passion for what they're doing, it also is a drawback because unless you do something extraordinarily different, it's no surprise when the movie ends up at what it was leading to. And let's talk about the twist without giving anything away. From a narrative perspective and going from the whole metaphor aspect and artistic presence of the film, I do appreciate the meaning behind the twist. However, the reveal... When you know what's going on in the film, it raises more questions than it answers, and the bad thing is, it doesn't really answer that many of the questions that you have. And before any of your questions feel like they have the opportunity to be answered, the movie just ends. Just out of nowhere, just cut to black. And there is so much I want to say about the twist that I can get into more specific details as to why I don't love it, and in many ways, I don't really like it at all. But that would get into spoiler territory, and if you do want to see that, just comment down below that you want to see it and like the video, and I will make a spoiler talk on this movie because I do think it deserves it. There are just so many ways that this movie is a mess, but at the same time, there are so many ways that this movie is fantastic, and when you just combine those two elements together, my overall reaction to this movie is... The acting is incredible from every single cast member, the cinematography and design are gorgeous, and the direction and score do a great job at building tension. But when it comes to the unnatural writing, messy twist ending, and overall structural issues, the script for this movie does unravel a lot of the technically fantastic aspect of the film. This movie has like a 30% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, but an 80% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. And this is the rare occasion where I don't agree with either of them, and I think overall it leans towards the middle spectrum of ratings. But to be fair, because so much of this movie is technically great, I'm going to give Don't Worry Darling a B. It's style over substance, but it's good style. Well guys, thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite psychological thriller? For me, it has to be Joker. One of these days, I will make a video on that movie because, God, there's so much I can say about that movie. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best. And don't forget to click subscribe and click the bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.